Welcome to military news. The United States and France are sending some of their best reconnaissance planes into the Black Sea region as Russia deploys troops for a possible invasion of Ukraine in the coming weeks or months. The separate deployment of U.S. Air Force RC-135, U.S. Army Artemis, and French Air Force Mirage 2000 aircraft underscores the seriousness of the situation in Ukraine. As more Russian troops and tanks congregate along the Ukrainian border, more and more NATO planes fill the Black Sea to keep an eye on Russia. NATO regularly flies reconnaissance planes along Russia's borders. But the alliance's air operations are intensifying in the Black Sea, according to Russia's Federal Air Transport Agency. The increased intensity of NATO aircraft flights near the borders of the Russian Federation creates a risk of dangerous incidents related to civilian aircraft, the agency claims. USAF RC-135VWs, 4 heavy machines with advanced electronic receivers for finding enemy radars, are frequent visits to the Black Sea. Sukhoi fighters from Russia's southern military district flew to meet the RC-135 in international airspace over the Black Sea on December 3 and 5 days later. New and used aircraft can help the Army to compensate for gaps in coverage as the U.S. Air Force continues to shrink its fleet. Aging E-8 ground reconnaissance aircraft. The Pentagon appeared to be coordinating the RC-135 and Artemis sorties. That makes sense. The RC-135 is best for detecting enemy troops through their electronic emissions. Artemis saw them on the radar. By layering data from both planes, intelligence analysts can paint a comprehensive picture of the Russian deployment. Where are the tanks? Which air defenses protect them? The French Air Force flies its own electronic intelligence sorties in. Although the United States plays an active role in gathering intelligence for Ukrainian forces, Washington is careful to avoid actions that Russia could view as an escalation. Previously scheduled intercontinental ballistic missile tests were postponed, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby recently noted. "We are not taking this decision lightly, but to show that we are a responsible nuclear power," Kirby said. Kirby stressed that, "This is not a step back in our readiness." Despite the unfortunate odds in actually being beaten by almost every metric by the Russian forces, the Ukrainian armed forces have demonstrated an extraordinary ability to remain effective in combat. Russian troops have experienced severe logistical problems, hampering their combat effectiveness. Reports on social media and online paint a grim picture of Russian troops. Russian troops entered Ukraine with inadequate food rations, in some cases, over 5 years. Fuel is a pressing issue, with several Russian convoys stalled due to diesel shortages. One Russian convoy north of Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, was more than 40 miles long and going nowhere fast. They have not, to our best estimate, made any meaningful progress, geographically, in the last 24 to 36 hours, Kirby explained during the afternoon briefing. He added that, "We believe the Russians are deliberately really reassembling themselves and reassessing the progress they haven't made and how to make up for lost time." Intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. In a tweet, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba voiced his support for sanctions against Russia but added that stressed that Ukraine needs additional arms deliveries, especially to our Air Force, now. And it appears the United States is gathering and sharing vast amounts of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance data with Ukraine. As per a report from Air Force magazine, the United States and NATO share everything from radio and communications data to radar and satellite data with Ukraine. They also provide Ukraine with airborne early warning and control system data collected from the air along NATO's eastern flank. Sensors from American F-15s, F-16s, F-18s, and F-35s are capable of penetrating deep into Ukraine, and the data they collect is also shared with Ukraine. However, one area that remains off limits is the Black Sea due to a potential accident or escalation with Russian troops. However, the United States wants to provide more lethal assistance to defenders of besieged Ukraine without making contact with Russian forces in the air on the ground, Kirby explained to reporters. "We are constantly looking for ways to support Ukraine to defend itself. And we are very actively engaged in that effort to help them better defend themselves through lethal and non-lethal assistance." The French Air Force flew its own electronic intelligence sortie over the Black Sea on December 8, attracting the attention of the Russian Su-27. Russia was met by a Mirage 2000D and escorting Rafale fighter planes as they refueled from the French Air Force's A-330 tanker. After the foreign warplanes turned away from the Russian state border, the Russian fighter jets safely returned to their home airfields, the Russian Air Force told state media. Take a good look at the video shot by the Russian pilot. Mirage gripped the pod under her belly. It was the Analysor Superheterodyne Tactic System, or ASTAC. A similar package of pod electronics receivers but on a smaller scale to the RC-100.